There's no better script than Casablanca. The action and dialogue are perfectly motivated. The narrative builds logically, each scene flowing naturally into the next. And at the end, we're hit with a conclusion that feels both surprising and inevitable.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Which is why the most important moment stands out, because it's the only piece that isn't there. Rick Blaine's transformation is the emotional core of the film. We don't get this perfect ending if Rick doesn't change. But we never see him change. We never learn why he decides to give up Ilsa, sacrifice his happiness, and walk into the mists to join the resistance. It's the right choice. It's the noble one. But until that moment, Rick had one priority. Rick.
I stick my neck out for nobody. I stick my neck out for nobody. I'm the only cause I'm interested in.
And then suddenly it's...
It doesn't take much to see that the problems of three little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world.
It's a transformation the film treats as self-evident, but it never shows us why it happens. In fact, it goes out of its way to avoid showing us. And I don't think that's an accident. I think the omission is the point. But while we may never know why Rick makes his decision, I have a pretty good guess when he makes it. I think it happens the night before the climax. I think it happens during my favorite scene in the movie, which I guess puts it on the short list for my favorite scene in movie history. It begins with a scandal. Ilsa slipping into Rick's room above the nightclub. This is her final attempt to persuade him to hand over the letters of transit, the only chance for her and her husband, Victor Laszlo, to escape the tightening Nazi noose and reach America. The letters can save Victor's life and maybe even change the course of the war, but Rick has refused to give Ilsa or Victor the letters. He's refused because, a year and a half before this moment, Rick and Ilsa had a romance in Paris. Rick had no idea Victor existed. Ilsa believed Victor had been killed by the Nazis. But as the Germans approached Paris, Ilsa learned Victor had survived. She left to reunite with him, standing Rick up at the train station in the process. And Rick's still bitter, petty even. And that pettiness has kept him from handing over the letters. So this scene, in Rick's home, is Ilsa's moonshot. She throws everything she has at Rick to get the letters. She negotiates.
You can ask any price you want, but you must give me those letters.
She appeals to his sense of purpose.
Well, I know how you feel about me, but I'm asking you to put your feelings aside for something more important.
She uses love.
Richard, we loved each other once.
She even tries the truth.
If you knew what really happened, if you only knew the truth.
Then she tries to anger him, to provoke him to action.
You're a coward and weakling.
But it doesn't matter. Rick's intractable.
You are our last hope. If you don't help us, Victor Laszlo will die in Casablanca.
What of it?
So having tried every persuasive technique under the sun, Ilsa reaches for the nuclear option. She pulls a gun on Rick. She wants him to know how far she's willing to go, and he dares her to do it. This is when Ilsa breaks. The music swells, the strings rise. Rick steps in, holds her, and she collapses into him. They kiss, and we dissolve to a spotlight sweeping over the city. It's like watching the moon careen across the night sky at 100 times normal speed. It seems to say, nothing to see here, folks. And we dissolve back to Rick, looking out from his apartment window. This is crazy. Did Rick and Ilsa sleep together? I don't know. The film doesn't make it clear, and that's a big deal. Now, I recognize that this is 1942, and the filmmakers are walking a tightrope. We're in the heyday of the Hays Code, censorship guidelines enforced by all the major Hollywood studios. And the Hays Code has a lot to say about love triangles, adultery, and sex. No movie from this era could have been more explicit than this about an extramarital affair. But I think the question of what Rick and Ilsa spend their evening doing matters more than any other movie romance from the era. Part of that is Casablanca's cultural footprint. It won Best Picture. It's a fixture on top 10 lists to this day. It's quoted by people who have never even seen the movie. Few films can match Casablanca's reach. Take Double Indemnity. It's just as brilliant, just as morally charged, and shaped by the same Hays Code pressures as Casablanca. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, but it hasn't seeped into culture the way Casablanca has. Nowhere close. But this also goes beyond reach, because the questions Casablanca raises about morality, loyalty, and sacrifice relate directly to the question of what happens between Rick and Ilsa that night. But instead of showing us, instead of making it easy, the filmmakers treat us to a shot of the night sky. Now, it's easy to assume the omission implies Rick and Ilsa slept together, because if they didn't, if they stayed up late catching up or mending fences, there would be no need for this transition. So obviously they slept together, right? I'm not so sure. We've seen this shot of the spotlight before, and it's never connoted time passing. The other time comes early in the film, right after Rick has Sasha load a woman named Yvonne into a cab to send her home. The film doesn't say it outright, but the implication is clear. Rick and Yvonne had something physical, and tonight Rick can't even look at her. Yvonne disappears from the scene, and then the spotlight. And when the camera returns to Rick, he's still standing outside his club. No time has passed. This shot doesn't signify a passage of time. It correlates to Rick exercising restraint and turning down a woman who wants to sleep with him. The spotlight isn't a moon, it's an eraser, a cosmic wipe, clearing away part of Rick's past so the film can move forward without it. The Rick who had a relationship with Yvonne is gone. What came before no longer matters. All that matters is what comes next. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. Sometimes a spotlight is just a spotlight. Because the truth is, I simply hope Rick didn't sleep with Ilsa. Because in spite of the romantic music, in spite of Ingrid Bergman's beauty and Bogart's cool, this moment doesn't feel romantic. It feels bleak. Ilsa has tried everything. Reason, sentiment, truth, anger, and a gun. And when none of that works, she collapses into Rick's arms. This isn't love. It's exhaustion. Ilsa's been on the run from the Nazis for over a year. She's tired, hunted, cornered. And now Rick, a man who claims to love her, is standing between her, her husband, and freedom. Even in the embrace, the negotiation continues.
And Laszlo?
Oh, you'll help him now, Richard, won't you?
This isn't romance. It's a transaction. Ilsa's affection is a bargaining chip. She's offering herself so her husband can escape and continue fighting the war. She's using Rick, but she's doing it out of love, sacrifice, and desperation. And if Rick sleeps with Ilsa, he's using her too, but he'd only be doing it for himself. Earlier in the film, a young woman approaches Rick in his club. She asks him about the prefect of police, Louis. See, Louis has a legal monopoly on granting exit visas, which allows him to barter his signature authority in exchange for certain favors from women he finds attractive. Rick doesn't endorse Louis' behavior, but that doesn't stop him from being an accessory to it.
Is he trustworthy? Is his word?
Oh, just a minute. Who told you to ask me that?
He did. Captain Reynolds did.
I thought so.
Rick's reaction tells us everything. He's not surprised. He's familiar with this arrangement. Louis sending a desperate woman to Rick so Rick can vouch for Louis' honesty? It's happened before. But then Rick gives the woman and her husband the money they need, so she won't have to sleep with Louis. Louis' shock is palpable when he realizes what Rick's done.
Why do you interfere with my little romances?
Put it down as a gesture to love.
Well, I forgive you this time. But I'll be in tomorrow night with a breathtaking blonde. And it'll make me very happy if she loses.
The suggestion is clear. Rick doesn't typically undercut Louis' schemes. This may be the first time he's done it. I mean, think about it. Why would Louis send desperate women to Rick if Rick regularly undermines Louis? He wouldn't. This is a first. Rick has changed. He no longer appears willing to stand idly by while Louis coerces desperate women. So, what will Rick do now that he's in the same position as Louis? Ilsa is desperate to save her husband's life, and Rick is the only one who can help. Rick holds power over Ilsa, just like Louis has power over the woman in the earlier scene. And just like Louis, Rick wants something. He wants Ilsa. But how much has Rick changed? And what's driving it? He's seen the flaws in Louis' behavior, but that's easy to do. It's much more difficult to interrogate yourself. Does Rick recognize he's doing the same thing with Ilsa that Louis has done with scores of women? We don't know. If he does recognize it, is it enough to stop him? We don't know. I really want this distinction to matter. The Rick that sees what he's doing and stops himself from taking advantage of Ilsa is the kind of man I want to respect. He's someone I want to root for. But the Rick who sleeps with Ilsa, who uses the situation to coerce intimacy from her, that's a man I want to hate. God, I want this distinction to matter. I don't want to cheer for the Rick who takes advantage of Ilsa. I don't want to identify with him. I don't want to think he's cool. But the truth is, he is cool, no matter what he does and why. Rick's played by Humphrey Bogart, and at this point in his career, nobody is cooler than Humphrey Bogart. That casting was deliberate. Yes, his name on the poster is going to put asses in seats, but it also tells the viewer this is a guy you're supposed to love.
He's the kind of man that, well, if I were a woman and I were not around, I should be in love with Rick.
And God help me, I can't help swooning when he says goodbye to Ilsa at the airport. Motivations be damned.
He's looking at you, kid.
What a guy. And at the end of the day, Rick is putting aside his pain, his desire, even his life. Rick lies, commits fraud, pulls a gun on the prefect of police, and kills Major Strasser in order to help Ilsa flee the country with another man. Rick has no escape plan. He does all this with the understanding that he will probably be arrested, thrown in a concentration camp, and killed.
9 chances out of 10, we'd both wind up at a concentration camp. Isn't that true, Louis?
This is lunch pail heroism, the kind that doesn't make headlines, the kind that won't be remembered, won't be celebrated, the kind that often doesn't even get a thank you. But it's what makes the work of the people we do hear about, the Victor Laszlos of the world, possible. This is a moment of peerless bravery, and we never get to know why he does it. I believe this goes beyond the Hays Code and moral hand-wringing. I think it's because Casablanca understands. When there's common danger, common purpose, common stakes, the motive matters less than the choice itself. Casablanca refuses to spoon-feed Rick's transformation because it wants us to sit with the fact that people are messy, contradictory, and still capable of doing the right thing. We should celebrate it when they do. Maybe Rick acts out of love. Maybe it's out of duty. Maybe it's for redemption. We don't know. We can't know. And I'm starting to think we shouldn't even care. Because in the end, life's not a purity test. Casablanca isn't about a man who becomes good. It's about a man who chooses good without getting any of the credit. It's about the idea that even a broken, morally compromised person can choose courage over caution and sacrifice over bitterness. It's about remembering that why or was matters less than what now or what comes next. If Casablanca were made today, we probably get the shot of Rick and Ilsa in bed after their embrace. And maybe that makes the journey more explicit. But sitting here now, I think it makes it weaker. Many of us never get a perfect motivation or a perfect set of circumstances. We get moments, opportunities, and choices. We see what Rick does with his. What will you do with yours?